Hello everybody, it's me, Ghost Critic. Thank you for joining me this Sunday for a new comic book review video. I've got about 6 books this week to talk about, throw out some opinions. But before we kick off, obviously, for those of you who are watching this video, you've seen the title of it. It always kicks off with comic book reviews, and then a title that I try and kind of theme about what I'm going to be talking about. A kind of a common thread through the books, perhaps. Maybe make it a little bit witty when the opportunity arises. And this week I had planned on this being a kind of jumping on type of video, saying about my books and whether it's worth jumping onto books, because I know there is this worry, I guess, from new readers or just comic book readers that haven't read a particular title before, that has been going on for X amount of issues or years even, and I just kind of wanted to sort of address that. But putting up Wednesday's video, the new comic book day one, and also reading my books, reading the comments from that video, it kind of started to dawn on me that a lot of my books are starting to end, and it is a little bit concerning for a number of reasons, and obviously that put paid to the theme of jumping on points, and why this video is now called For Whom the Bell Tolls, because there is quite a lot of my titles, especially this week, that are either ending or they're starting to reformat themselves for, I guess, what they consider a new type of readership, and we'll be talking about that with perhaps a couple of the books that I've read this week. So given that my books are starting to fall off the wayside, a lot of you will probably be thinking, well, that's just the more opportunity to go and pick up new stuff. And yes, there's tons of new stuff that's always coming out from so many different publishing houses, and I go, yes, there's a lot of stuff out there I would like to read, but I'm trying to kind of rein myself in from, say, the Ghost Critic of maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where when a new #1 came out, it was super hyped, and I'd just buy it. It'd go straight on my pull list, and perhaps for a while I may not have been enjoying it and would have thought, this might have been a bit of a waste of time picking this title up. So, and then there's real life stuff going on. I'm thinking of the future and where my life could potentially go to, which I can't really talk about. But so holding back on just the stuff that I'm very excited about just for myself rather than the surrounding hype. Maybe it's a good thing that a lot of my titles are ending, but it'll just make these videos all the more shorter. And realising I've been rambling for the last 3.5 minutes and I haven't spoken about one comic book yet. So shall we kick off and start talking about the books I picked up this week? This week I haven't really put them into any kind of entertainment value scale, which is what I normally do, and then my pick of the week, but though I do have a pick of the week this week, and that's mostly because of all the stuff I've been talking about, so it's kind of difficult to put them in order because I'm thinking about other things, and there are some stuff that I'm going to talk about first which really shouldn't be there, but for reasons I will explain as I go into each issue. As always, spoiler warnings. I'm going to be talking about storylines, cliffhangers and the lot, so if you haven't read any of these, please go away, read your book, come back, or just fast forward the video until you don't see the comic I'm holding up. Right, let's kick off with an image book from Greg Rucka and Michael Lark that made a return of sorts, given the news of this book. It's Lazarus, issue 27. Now again, this really shouldn't be at the bottom of the pile, or the first to speak about, because this is a great title. Again, not a book you can jump on, for two reasons. One, there is a great history with this book. There are so many kind of nuanced storytelling tropes going on in this that you need to know everything that went on before it. But this book it's kind of ending, and I did put this up on my Twitter a few days ago when I'd read kind of some of the back matter in this, and I kind of want to add something on this now because it's something I kind of missed out on. Basically what Greg Rucka and Michael Lark are doing with this book is, with the next issue, it kind of concludes this short two-part storyline. And then issue 29 doesn't come out until September, and they're doing a bit of a reformat where it's going to be a book that comes out quarterly. It's going to be, I think it was 66 or 64 pages long. Yeah, 64 pages long. Basically, they're saying it's going to be 44 pages of actual comic, and then the other 20 pages are going to be devoted to letters, essays, artifacts, and short fiction. Now, one of the things that I missed out when I read this book, when I read the little blurb about what was going on with it, was that, where was it now? Oh, damn it. That's it, right, okay. So, we will be publishing the main series quarterly and expanding to 64 pages. Now that's makes me think that yes, this book is only going to come out quarterly, but you're going to perhaps get some sort of mini-series between these big, I guess, that it's almost like what Astro City is doing, Kurt Busiek. Where he's switching to trades and bringing out Astro City now. It feels very much like that on a quarterly basis. And I don't really know what to think about that. I did say when I posted this up on on my Twitter account, it was like we seem to be going from one extreme to another. We have the books that are coming out like on a weekly basis, like the Avengers No Surrender at Marvel, the twice monthly books that Marvel and DC love doing, and then we seem to be going right to the very other end where you don't know when you're going to see the next one, or it's quarterly, it's perhaps yearly. With Astro City, there has been no kind of firm solicitations about how many times Astro City is going to come out in a year, and I just feel a monthly book is, to me anyway, more desirable. It's not too much and it's not too little. I don't mind having to wait a while for the next kind of story arc, like a lot of the Image books do. They take a brief hiatus and then come back with the next story, and that's fine by me. I know what's coming. So I don't know whether Lazarus will stay on my pull list by the time September comes around. Who knows what that future will bring. Let's talk about the actual book and what was going on, and we're going back to a character that we kind of thought might have died, certainly lost, but Greg Rucka has come back to him, and that's Jonah, one of the children of the Carlisle family, who tried to take down their own father and lead and be the head of the family. His father asked Forever, their Lazarus, to kill him, and there's that kind of brother-sister relationship between Forever and Jonah, despite the fact that Forever is actually, really to all intents and purposes, a clone and not really a sibling as such, but there is that element of brotherly sisterly love between the two, and Forever wouldn't kill him, and he was deemed drowned in the vast ocean And now we're going to come back to that story here in this two-part prelude. And we have him being rescued by a fisherman's boat and taken to the island of Aga, which is held by the Bittner family. And again, this is why you really need to read all of these, because this world that Rucker has created, it's now not ruled by like governments or royal families, but financial families in some respects, the rich of the rich. And the Carlisle family are one of the larger houses, and they have alliances with different families. There's the Bittner, there's the Hawk family. And so Jonah has to kind of cover up who he actually is to ensure, I guess, his own safety after being rescued from the ocean. And there's a romance element in this issue where he starts falling in love, and a relationship starts to blossom with the daughter of the family that rescued him. It's a wonderful story. I kind of feel at odds with it because I know the next issue is going to be the last one and we're not going to see it for a great deal of time. Obviously, Greg Rucka and Michael Lark have thought about this long and hard because, you know, they've already taken quite the long hiatus from this, a good 6 months, and this is clearly what they were gearing up to. And I guess this is almost like a swan song for Lazarus to say goodbye to these single floppies and onto this strange new 64-page format that they're going to bring out in September. I'll be looking out for it. Whether I will be picking it up is another thing, but it is a great book if you are interested in that kind of it's almost like a spy story mixed in with warring families, espionage, all that kind of stuff done in an almost post-apocalyptic universe. Then it might be worth, you know, taking the time over the next 4 or 5 months to go and pick up the trades on this and catch up, and then join in with this this new format that Lazarus is going to take. Moving on to Mr. Miracle from Tom King and Mitch Gerards, issue number 8, and just by its mere concept that this is a 12-issue maxi series, yes, we're drawing to the end of this series, and for me, I perhaps haven't quite clicked with the book, story-wise at least. I think at times it's trying to be perhaps too clever, too nuanced in its approach to the storytelling. It's clever. Is it too clever for the comic book readership? Yes, this will appeal to those who like to break down comic books into their kind of finite detail, and they'll lap this up. For the casual reader of comics, this was probably maybe a little bit over their heads, and I kind of am in that camp, despite the fact my long time comic book readership that I have. Perhaps I'm just too stupid to be getting a lot of what's going on here, because to me all that seems to be going on in this particular issue is, because last issue we had Big Barda and the birth of her child, and now we have Barda and Scott kind of trying to take it in turns to look after the baby but fight the war that is going on in Apocalypse, and I guess it's a story about a family trying to juggle family life with work life, and the two of them not quite being able to let go of being with their child. It's obviously early days, but they've got people there to help them, but I guess it's more of a family story, and the ideas of bringing up a child. it's okay. It's a good comic. I mean, the artwork, as always, by Mitch Gerads is fantastic. His the 9-panel grid is forever evident. I would like a little bit more kind of variety in this. There are kind of moments where it's like this particular panel. Normally we would actually be quite annoyed with this set of panels, because it basically is the same panel over and over again, and it's just him singing the "Hush Little Baby, Don't Say a Word" nursery rhyme to calm his baby down, with one slight kind of panel doing that kind of distorted TV effect that makes, it's gone on quite a lot throughout this run, which makes the reader think, why is that suddenly distorted? Is this reality? Is this just an idyllic dream that Mr. Miracle and Big Barda are having within this kind of... Their life is war. It is constant battles and fighting and bloodshed over on Apokolips. But I can go with this for the 12 issues. If you've got any insights into this, what is actually going on, please let me know in the comments section. What am I really missing here? Super Sons issue number 15 from DC Comics from Tomasi. I love this book. It is ending. I'm sure, is it next issue or perhaps the issue after, and it all comes to an end, and it's just such a shame. But in some respects I understand why, from my own reading of the book, and I've loved every single issue. As I always say, this is a book that has always been youthful, it's been brash, it's been bright, it's been of the utmost entertaining. I've really just lapped up this fun book amidst all this kind of the darkness and the seriousness and the adultness of all the other books, that it's just a fresh, appealing book for me to read. Perhaps that one goes against it. Shouldn't, because once you get that plethora of, the dark, serious books, it kind of, you get bogged down with it and you just want something funny and light and fresh. The other thing I think was the problem with this book, and why people may not have gravitated towards it as much, is because I think it does follow a similar path when you have like these youngsters in their own books, especially these two. I've always found that they weren't given the kind of unleashed adventures that they could have. There's always got to be like an adult present. We've had a lot of, Superman and Lois kind of trying to rein John Superboy in, have him go to, a regular school, do his homework, not get into too much trouble. And then of course you've got Batman, who Damian completely dismisses constantly because he's that arrogant, but that's all fun. But yes, there was always this kind of adult present holding them back. I was hopeful when they kind of got sucked into that other kind of dimension with the whole kind of living planet type deal, that this could have been potential for them to be released from that kind of adult supervision and to kind of play around in this new dimension or this new universe that they got sucked into, and could have had adventures and grown and become better superheroes. But I guess because probably Damian's being used in other books, perhaps Superboy's being in use in other books, that couldn't last for that long. Otherwise, continuity discrepancies. And I think that's again why this has held this book back. For this particular issue, and I guess it's kind of its swan song, we're kind of going back to the very start in some respects, because we have Kid Amazo back as the villain. We started off with that as their initial villain, and we're going to end it this way as well. escaping from Lex Luthor's lab as he was testing it, trying to kind of reverse engineer Kid Amazo's kind of powers, but wasn't having much luck and found a way to escape, and revenge is on the cards against Superboy and Robin, the Super Sons. And we're kicking off. It's like they're in their underwater HQ, and Kid Amazo smashes through and basically fills it with water, and they have to try and escape. And again, there's that whole kind of adult supervision just in the background as Cyborg turns up out of the blue because he's been watching at the watchtower up in space, any sign of danger, and they're there in some capacity to help or rescue or save them. But this leads on to something that I don't know, perhaps is happening in Justice League. Kid Amazo has managed to ensnare the Justice League. The last panel, cliffhanger page, have them all kind of knocked out and strung up by Kid Amazo and Superboy. And I guess Robin are going to have to save the Justice League team, and then it's goodbye. But I love this book. It was been a happy respite from the darkness of the adult orientated comic books that we're very much getting or having to get used to these days. Daredevil issue 601, continuing on the storyline of the big bulky 600 issue that we had a couple of weeks ago. And I really like Charles Soule and the way he writes this book, because he has to walk, especially with this storyline, he has to walk a very narrow kind of a razor edge here, in that we don't want to make it too much lawyerish. We need some Daredevil in there, we need some action in there. And I think he's really kind of nailed that balance now, as there is a lot of kind of mayor, lawyer, sorting out the city as it's being taken over and destroyed by the Hand, but at the same time bringing in some good Daredevil action. And there is, again, I posted this on Twitter, there's a shot of all the superheroes that have been incarcerated that Daredevil had brought all together, and they're going to form this big team. And I just thought, oh, Charles Soule, he's just created, probably not, but you know, just for the purposes of this issue, but they look like a superhero team that could have their own title. Perhaps he might think about doing that. But it was just a great shot as they're in the prison, incarcerated, and thinking that Daredevil has kind of turned on them, and it was all a big plan of his to get them all captured, which obviously wasn't the case. So as Daredevil escapes after he was taken away in the police van, he managed to escape because the Hand were going to try and take him down, but you know, he may have been handcuffed at the time with kind of power dampeners of sorts. He still managed to get himself out of a rather sticky situation, and on to becoming the next mayor of New York City, as there is the kind of like this clause in the laws of the New York state that he could become the mayor while Kingpin is incapacitated after being shot 100 times with arrows from the Hand, and he is not wasting any time in rounding up everyone to help and get back power to his city. Just a fantastic story from Charles Soule. Really enjoying the kind of directions he's going into. Daredevil, Matt Murdock has always, you know, talked throughout his career about, you know, New York City, especially Devil's Kitchen. It's his city, much like Batman says about Gotham. But now it truly is his city. It is his responsibility because he's the mayor now. He's going to make all the decisions, and he's not making himself so popular with some people, but that's the way of the mayoral world, I guess. But fantastic stuff. Love Daredevil at the moment. Penultimate book of the week before we get to my pick of the week. It's Descender issue 29 from Jeff Lemire, and yes, it's another one of my titles that is soon coming to an end, as this seems to be the last story arc. It's the start of the first part of the End of the Universe storyline, one of 4, so we have only 3 more issues of this great sci-fi story that I've enjoyed from the beginning. I'm a huge Jeff Lemire fan. Pretty much everything he's ever put out independently, I will add to that. His kind of Marvel work that I've seen him do hasn't been as good, but I give him a kind of a free card for that, because I'm sure he's tied to kind of editorial dictates and all that. But love this book. We have, like I say, this seems to be climaxing to the final war between humans and robots. The robots have infiltrated the UGC, which is kind of like the big governing body of the human world and all the planets that they reside on, and basically they just massacre them in this book, and take over, I guess, that area of the human world, and they seem to be doing a darn good job. Human life is almost becoming extinct in this part of the Jeff Lemire universe, Descender universe, as they just spend too much time clearly just talking about deciding whether to use this big secret weapon that they have. What is this big secret weapon? Well, we find out at the end of this issue they have built their own harvester, which kicked this whole kind of I guess history of this title off, where the robots came with this just like humongous harvester robot and tried to kind of, you know, take down humanity then. But this book has always been firmly centred on one particular robot, Tim 21, who is apparently the key to ending this war. We don't quite yet know how he's going to. Is it a case of the humans want him because he has the key to allowing the robots to win, and that's why the robots want him? I don't think it's been made 100% clear yet, but we're building up to that, as Tim 21 has found this kind of underwater city where these kind of new sets of artificial robots, you know, we can see down there, have been I guess hiding out, waiting for whatever's going on in their universe. And we get kind of a bit of a history about these kind of ancient ones of the robot life, and Tim 21's hoping that they're going to be able to help, but the kind of the twist on this is that these kind of very historic, these very old robots, the kind of the gods, I guess, of the robot world, they're kind of, I guess their programming in some respects kind of goes from one extreme to another. They either create or they destroy, and perhaps that is Tim 21's key, that perhaps he will help them create a new world, a new universe, where hopefully the robots and the humans can live together. Perhaps why the robots want Tim 21. Perhaps to, you know, keep him out of the hands. They want to be the predominant, if not the only, civilization within this universe. He's drawing all these characters together. We've got the 3 kind of bounty hunters, I guess you'd call them. Is his name Andy, who was kind of like the big brother of Tim 21, Andy's girlfriend Effie, and their kind of Tim, I can't remember his name unfortunately, but they're following on. They're going out looking for Tim 21, and their kind of relationships between all three of them start breaking down. Effie wants to save the little kind of robot dog instead of trying to escape. Andy eventually kind of sides with her, but that big bulking monster takes a shot at Effie. He is just singularly minded. We have been going on this adventure to get Tim to scrap him, because that's what they do. So yeah, this book is really gearing up for a hopefully very big climactic kind of ending to this book. Again, it's a shame that this is ending, but you know, stories have a finite end, and it's often the case that, you know, some writers just continue on and on and on and on, not really knowing where they're going, and the quality fades. And I think, I can't remember who I was speaking to in the comments about this, but Jeff Lemire is writing a lot of books across a lot of publishing houses at the moment, so perhaps it's a good idea that he kind of wraps up some of these books, so he can concentrate and keep up to the high quality that he has been doing on all his books. So great stuff as always. It's a book that I'm afraid I can't really recommend you now buy, given that it's ending, but definitely go out and snatch up those trades, or if you're even luckier, find the back issues. My pick of the week this week, it's done it again. I'm so in love with this book for so many reasons, and it is Mike Carey and Peter Gross's The Highest House, issue number 3. Again, this is a limited series. It's only I think it's 6 issues long, and it's in this kind of big magazine format. Glorious artwork inside from Peter Gross, and it's just one of those stories that is incredibly immersive, and it's a long read. There is a lot to take in, but while I'm reading this book, I know it's taken a long time for me to read it, but I don't feel like it's a chore to read it. It's just like any other comic book. It's 26 pages long of story, but obviously because of its larger size, it can take much more on each page. You can see, you know, from certain pages, there's a lot of talking going on, but at the same time, it's getting the chance to kind of tell a really interesting and kind of immersive storyline that really draws the reader in. We had at the end of last issue our main character, not shown in here, this isn't her, it's a character called Moth, and Moth has made a deal with this entity that they've come across called Obsidian. It's encased in this big rock, and whatever is inside it has kind of done the whole kind of granted 3 wishes to Moth, in payment, Moth has to help him escape from this imprisonment, I'm guessing it is. So the story kicks off with the kind of the ruler of this house that Moth is now a servant, a kind of almost slave within, coming back from the wars. So everything's got to be perfect, and all the servants come out to, you know, greet their master, and be there to gain offerings from the kind of ruler that has won the war, come back triumphant. And it's here that Moth sees the daughter of the ruler, and instantly, you know, is attracted, falls in love with her, and in an almost kind of creepy way starts stalking her. And it is at this one point in the story that Moth has to save her life, and I guess becomes more and more involved with the the kind of scenario, the life of this kind of almost royal type family, as he is taken on as, I guess, a kind of personal assistant as to the ruler of this house, and that gives him more opportunity to be with the daughter. But in a kind of twist at the end of this, the daughter is not going to be interested in Moth in the slightest, as she prefers the ladies. And Moth, unfortunately, at the end of this issue, finds her in bed with another woman, and I guess his dreams are all going to be dashed now, and it's going to be interesting to see where that storyline for Moth now goes, with his love unrequited. But there is so much in this, with, again, it's all very kind of, it's very much like Lazarus that we talked about right at the start. You have all these warring families and the political agendas that go behind that, alliancing with other families. The daughter is meant to be marrying the son of another house to strengthen the numbers, and the kind of trade routes and all that kind of stuff. And that's all wrapped up in here as well. And of course there's the kind of supernatural magical element thrown in as well, which is just it's just right up my alley. I love this book. It's just a beautiful thing to behold and hold on to. I can't wait for the next issue of this. I can't see it getting any worse. It will always be of this wonderful high standard of not only storytelling but the art as well. Just fantastic. Please go out and pick this up. It'll be interesting to see how they collect this up in a trade. Is it going to be this big, or are they going to make it smaller? But please go and support this new IDW book. Only on its 3rd issue, but go and hunt out those back issues and just go on for the next 3. Fantastic stuff. Thank you for watching, everyone, because that's it now. All those comic books I've told you about. Let me know in the comments section down below if you've been picking up any of those books. What would have been your pick of the week? What am I not picking up that you're really loving? Just put it all down there and I will listen, I will read, and I will comment back. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Share it out there. I am in your hands. Bye bye.